And obviously a big day for Devon. What's it like to see him kind of be in this moment and go through this process?
Beyond excited for him and his family. It's so cool because I remember when we first got here, he had hopes and dreams of being in this moment, and it's just so cool to see it come to fruition for him. And obviously, he has a 40 and some drills standing in front of him, but we are just beyond excited for him, to get this opportunity.
When teams call you and ask about him, obviously the tape kind of stands out.
Yeah.
What do you tell them about what he brings?
Well, first and foremost, I tell them to believe what they're seeing. Most teams when they're calling, they're enamored that we have so many guys in the secondary with this kind of talent and ability. But for the most part, when talking about Devon, the first thing I start off with is he's an absolute dog. In the way he plays, you see it before the snap, after the snap, during the snap. Like that's just the way the kid's wired, and what you see is what you get. Devon, when Devon walks in the building, you're gonna know he's in the building. He's loud, he's boisterous, right? He backs it up. He's not just so. Oftentimes people can assume, right? Oh, he's disrespectful. He's a great kid. He's a phenomenal kid. Never disrespected any coaches. Really thrilled to have him in the building, and he just does things the right way. He's a great leader. Having him in a room, it was so reassuring because it was like having another coach in there. Devin had a different way of communicating with our players, and I think at the end of the day, the guys bought into it. It was a tad bit different than the way I was communicating with him, but it was just so cool to see in his development and his maturity and just how he's grown.
What do you hope your players caught from him or heard from him?
Well, I hope that they caught his work ethic, because outside of Devin being a really good player, the way he works is 10 times harder. Every good player that I've been around, I had the luxury to be around, every good player on our team, they all have tremendous work ethic. And so for any young man out there who has aspirations, young woman who has aspirations to play at the college level, to play at the pro level, you ain't going to run away from hard work. Everybody has ability, everybody has talent. But hard work is what's going to set you apart from everybody else.
Was your first impression of him? What's these last 2 or 3 years like being watching him?
First impression of him was, man, this young man plays really hard, and man, he's slight. You know what I'm saying? He's a smaller frame, but I've never had a player that, when I first met him, Devin was probably 160 something. I never had a young man that small of in terms of weight that play that physical. And so just trying to protect him in this conference. Obviously, it's the Big Ten, and he's going to play against a lot of guys in terms of running backs that are going to run downhill, and in our system, corners have to tackle. And so, what can we do to protect this young man? And I think part of it is one, just putting on the proper amount of weight, and he put on the weight, and I think he obviously this past year kind of showed what he's capable of when he's extremely healthy and he's flying around. But I'm telling you guys, like I tell every other pro scout, pro liaison, Devin is going to be a 10 times better player as a pro than he was in college. Here's why. Okay, obviously, the only distraction that Devin had was school. Right, Devin went to class. Devin was a good student. Devin handled his business, but he's all ball now at that level. And I think he's going to be I thought he was a special player here. I think his game is going to elevate because he literally, outside of, right, you have other distractions, but I think the young man is humble. I think he's focused. I think he's locked in. He's been waiting on this moment his whole life. He comes from a great support system in his mother, and so, it's going to be a really cool opportunity for him. And I think school sometimes, right, like we all got to go to school when we get here, but I think sometimes a young player, especially as talented as that, right, when they want to go to the next level or be the player they're capable of being at the next level, you don't have to deal with that in the NFL. And so I think Devin is going to be a much better NFL player and college player, funny enough.
What do you believe separates him from some of the other top corners?
Ooh, haha. I saw Mina Kimes tweet something last night, right? Like, dude, just the way he's wired, like Devin can get beat and it's like the play never happened, right? And for a lot of the top guys, they probably have the mindset, right? Not only does he have the mindset, he has the mouthpiece, right? Devin is really good. Devin's gonna know. Devin's gonna let you know that he's really good, right? And he's gonna talk trash the whole time, and he's gonna be able to back it up as well. And so, now his game isn't based around trash talking, but because he's a really good player. But I think what separates him from everybody else is, right, his ability to to cut in transition on a dime, his ability to be 181, 183, and play with guys that are way bigger than him, you know, and match their aggressiveness and their violence at the point of attack, you know. His ability to go and get the football, you know, I keep saying this, man. Devon was a 6'8" high jumper. You know, like that is unheard of a kid with his ability, right, coming out of high school, coming to play football at the college level and being as good as he is. And so I think that's what makes him special.
And what you learn about Devon, where he is one of the slider guys that you coached at first, but was willing to put his head down and go. I mean, regardless of that.
What I learned about Devon is he's not a cookie cutter. You know, Devon is completely different than every other DB I've ever had. Why? Because one, I think that Devon knows he's good. Like Devon walking in the door, Devon knows he's good. Devon knows he's talented. If you ask Devon could he cover Randy Moss in his hay, he'd tell you hell yeah. Right? He's just wired that way, man. He came out the womb like that, right? And so because he's wired that way, I think everything that he does, he kind of has that confident mindset, you know. And what kind of made him different from all the other players is that because he knew that, because he was wired that way, for most young men, they have a tendency to get complacent. Well, not him. I think it fueled him and pushed him to work even harder. And for me, from a coaching standpoint, I got really excited about those kind of situations and moments, you know, because I knew that I can push him really, really hard, and I knew how he was going to respond.
I just wanted to follow up on that. When somebody's so confident, how do you challenge them as a coach, knowing kind of that they feel like where they're at?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we had some humble sessions, right? You know, I try to pull things out of practice, like, you know, sometimes in one-on-one segments, Devon would get beat, right? And we would talk about why he got beat, and I try to bring him back to reality, that he wasn't as good as he thought he was, and he would assure me that he was, you know. And so I tried to pull certain things out of practice, you know, whether it was a guy who he felt like wasn't as good as him, catch a ball on him, you know, just small things to motivate him, you know. But when he was when he didn't want nobody to catch a ball, they didn't. You know what I'm saying? And so when he didn't have a lot of high energy and he wasn't excited about going to practice every day, I knew something was catastrophically wrong, you know. And so I think with a player of that caliber, you just try to find little things to kind of motivate him, you know, whether it's a one-on-one segment in practice or somebody catches a ball on him in a team setting, you know, just constantly pushing them to the limit, you know.
As a coach, do you sit back and enjoy today, or are you a little nervous, or what's your mentality heading into this?
It's so funny you say that, right? 2 days ago, I called Devon. I mean, we talk probably every day. I called him and I'm like, "You nervous?" He said, "For what?" "I'm just running. You know, I've been running my whole life, but I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous at all. I'm extremely confident for this young man. I think he's been waiting on this moment a really long time, and I'm elated. I'm excited. I'm just beyond excited for him. You know, I mean, think about this, right? Like, the draft is going to start, and whatever he was before the draft started, when the draft is over, his life's going to completely change, right? It's going to completely change, for better or worse, depending on how you look at it, right? And so, just for him to have this kind of opportunity, being where he's come from, having a great support system in his mother, you know, I'm just like, these are really special. Like, this is why we coach, right? Every story isn't like this, right? Some people, instead of going to have an opportunity to go to the NFL, maybe they're starting their own business, right? Maybe they're moving in another direction in life, but to see this young man as hard as he's worked, as talented as he is, you know, to finally reap the rewards, all right, of the work that he's put in, it's just so special, beyond special.
Now just moving on to the NFL, can you give us your favorite moment of Witherspoon trash talk?
Favorite moment of Witherspoon trash talk? Oh, that's a great one. I think it was probably versus Nebraska. You know, leading up into the Nebraska game, you know, I had several conversations with Devon in our secondary, because by that time people had knew about him. People had knew he was a little extra, right? Does some extra things after the snap in terms of talking trash. And me and one of the refs, I had notified the ref, right? The ref had notified me as well. And I think he was covering Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer was running a deep over. And going to that game, Trey Palmer was coming off of 2 back-to-back weeks of 200 yards receiving. There was a lot of hype going into that matchup about how good Trey Palmer is, and Trey Palmer's a really good player. But I don't think people knew who Spoon was, right? And so just leading up into the game, Spoon was just talking about how he wasn't going to have a catch, in our meetings and in practice. And, I'm challenging him. I'm just telling him, like, dude, you hadn't played nobody like this, man. Don't be scared, I'm definitely adding fuel to that fire, right? And we get into the game, and he starts talking trash from play one, but something that's on film, we run a pressure, and Trey's on the deep over at the number 3 position, and Spoon's running with him stride for stride. And they had ran this play a couple times, and the quarterback missed Trey. Like, I don't know if he overthrew him or he missed the shot to him. And Spoon is running back, like, with Trey from the sideline and doing, like, the crybaby face, right? And the ref sees that, and I see it, and I'm like, please, Lord, don't throw a penalty. Because I know what's coming or what's potentially coming, right? We had spoke about it, and he's just talking trash and making that face as he's running back. And the ref looks at me and kind of like gives me this look, and once the drive's over, I grab Spoon and I'm talking to him, and the ref calls both of us over. He's like, 31, man, you can't do that, man. You can't do that. I want to throw the flag. I got to throw you can't do that, throw it 31. And so I just continued to pound into his head like, dude, let's be subtle, right? Let's not let the world know what you're doing. And last thing we want to do is get a penalty. And I think it was a 3rd down situation where we should have been off the field. He didn't throw the flag, thank God. But people are obviously going to be watching for that moving forward.
You just get one more. Like, a lot of people look at his measurements, and it's not maybe quite what NFL wants. So why doesn't that show up on film with him?
That's a great question, man. People get so caught up in size and this and that. At one point in time, a quarterback was supposed to be 6'6" or 6'5" and see over the O-line, and then it took one person, right, to kind of break that mold, and now everybody wants these smaller, athletic quarterbacks that can run around and throw the ball, right? I think with Devon, I think the reason why that doesn't matter is I think he's a generational talent, man. Like, you find me a player, right, that has his mentality, right, in terms of confidence. If you ask Devon who's the best quarterback, he'd probably say himself. That's how confident he is. Dude ain't never played quarterback outside of Little League, and he'd probably tell you he's the best quarterback. He's like uber confident, right? He walks with a swagger in terms of when he steps on that field that permeates into our defense. Like, I don't know if fear exists in that young. I really don't, because I think his whole life he's been told, you're too small, right? You're not quite fast enough, right? You're not quite strong enough, and he walks around with 2 chips on his shoulder, and that's how he approaches life. And on top of that, his work ethic is like through the roof, right? And I think anytime you have a talent like that, right, those become your. They're not saying that he's Kobe Bryant, but those become your Kobe Bryants, your Michael Jordan, your LeBron James. Like, they're like, why are they different, right? Your Caitlin Clarks, right? Your Angela Reese. Like, why are they different? They're different because of their mindset, their mentality, their work ethic, where their work ethic is through the roof, and they have superb ability, And so I'm just fortunate and happy that I had a chance to coach them.